Mr. Bongino, you are seated there serving as the Deputy Director of the FBI. Yet your history demonstrates that you have turned the justice system into a weapon against migrants and Muslims. Ilhan Omar's voice resonated throughout the congressional inquiry chamber, piercing and accusatory, with that recognizable tone she employs whenever television crews are present. She stood tall at her microphone, with her designer headscarf impeccably arranged, and her facial expression displaying righteous indignation. This was the specific moment she had been waiting for, the hearing she had personally demanded, and the stage she intended to utilize to ruin Dan Bongino on a national broadcast. Tonight, she proceeded while growing more passionate about her subject. I intend to reveal your prejudice, your dishonesty, and your discriminatory plan for the entire world to witness. The progressive wing of the audience burst into loud cheering as they had arrived early and filled the venue, prepared to witness their squad leader defeat Trump's law enforcement nominee. C-SPAN cameras recorded every single second, while CNN and MSNBC, along with Fox News, were all present to document the event. This was the specific session everybody had been anticipating, called the Congressional Oversight Committee on Immigration System Integrity. That was the formal name, yet everybody understood what this truly represented, which was a theatrical tribunal pitting Ilhan Omar against Dan Bongino. It was the squad's emerging icon facing off against Trump's polarizing FBI deputy director after she had dedicated weeks to getting ready. Her team had gathered damaging information, practiced her offensive lines, and synchronized with sympathetic news outlets so she was completely prepared. Dan Bongino sat behind the witness desk, being 50 years of age, a former NYPD officer and former Secret Service agent who was a Queens native through and through. He was dressed in a dark suit with a white shirt and red tie, looking like a federal agent, but his face displayed an emotion Omar had not foreseen. He did not appear anxious, nor was he defensive. In fact, he was nearly grinning with that subtle lift at the edge of his lips. It is the expression a police officer adopts when a person under suspicion is on the verge of saying something incredibly foolish. The citizens of America have a right to understand Omar insisted that you have exploited your office to attack defenseless groups, to persecute refugees, and to enforce Trump's bigoted border protocols. You pretend to be concerned with justice and security, yet your actual goal is bias against individuals who resemble me. More cheering erupted and camera bulbs flashed as she believed she was succeeding completely. Bongino leaned closer to his microphone, and when he finally spoke, that distinct Queens dialect was audible, providing raw New York street police intensity, rather than the refined Washington rhetoric everyone anticipated. "Congresswoman," he stated with a voice that was tranquil yet commanding, "before we discuss my history, let us discuss your history. Let us discuss deception within immigration. Let us discuss deception regarding marriage. Let us discuss lying under oath. Let us discuss tax evasion, and let us discuss violations of campaign funding laws." He waited a moment to let the words resonate, because I have served as a police officer for 20 years, with 4 years in the NYPD and 12 years in the Secret Service. I have looked into fraud investigations, and I have apprehended felons, so I recognize deception when I observe it. Another silence followed, and the chamber had become completely still, while Omar's smile had solidified into ice. "And regarding you, Congresswoman," Bongino leaned in, while his gaze remained fixed upon hers. "You are currently engaging in numerous federal offenses, and we intend to discuss every single one of them right here and right now on national television." He retrieved a substantial file that was sorted with markers and had papers clearly viewable. "You desired to speak about the honesty of the immigration system, which is excellent. So let us begin with how you cheated the immigration system by entering into marriage with your own brother. The chamber erupted in noise as Omar's expression transformed from self-righteous assurance to paralyzed disbelief in a fraction of a second. Her aides were nervously glancing at one another, while her lawyers leaned in because this was not the screenplay, and this was not how the event was intended to unfold. "You wish to discuss the integrity of immigration procedures," Bongino said again, while getting comfortable in his seat, with his police demeanor fully engaged. "Very well. Let us discuss your wedding to Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, a British national who, based on significant proof, is your biological sibling." He opened the file and removed the initial batch of records stating, "Now I have handled fraud inquiries, secret service, financial offenses, identity theft, and marriage schemes. I have witnessed everything, and this particular case," he moved his head side to side, "is a classic example. Allow me to explain exactly how I am aware that you wed your brother to perpetrate immigration deceit." Omar attempted to cut in, claiming these are repulsive, bigoted conspiracy theories. "Documents are not bigoted, Congresswoman." Bongino's tone was steady, not furious, but simply practical in a police manner, because evidence is not bigoted and facts are not bigoted. So let us examine the data. He displayed the first paper showing in 2009 you lawfully wed Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, which is not debated as you acknowledged it. The marriage license was recorded with Hennepin County, Minnesota in August of 2009 when you were approximately 26 or 27 years of age. He did not pause for a response, saying, "Now, here is the point where the situation becomes intriguing regarding Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi. So let us discuss his identity. I retrieved his academic transcripts from the United Kingdom, where he went to secondary school prior to arriving in the United States. Bongino displayed official appearing papers bearing British government stamps, showing UK school files with the father's name recorded as Noor Saeed Elmi, which is his father. Now let us examine your refugee application papers from 1995, when your family arrived in America." He displayed another paper and placed them next to each other, showing the father's name as Noor Saeed Elmi, which is the identical name, the exact same name, and the same spelling. He looked toward the panel at the news cameras and at Omar, saying, "Now I am merely a cop from Queens, and I lack prestigious certifications in mathematics. But where I originate from, when two individuals identify the identical man as their father, that renders them siblings, specifically brother and sister." Family caused someone in the audience to gasp, while camera shutters snapped continuously. But that represents only one portion of the proof, Bongino went on, with a stable voice constructing the argument bit by bit. "Allow me to provide you with more specifically regarding social media and Instagram." He removed printed copies and held them up, showing Ahmed Elmi's Instagram profile before you erased everything and before you attempted to wipe the web. But you know the saying that the internet is eternal. These are preserved uploads. He began to read a post from 2013 where Ahmed Elmi shares a picture with your daughter from your earlier connection with Ahmed Hirsi. The description he uses refers to her as his niece, not his stepdaughter, but his niece. Bongino glanced upward, saying, "Now, if he was merely your spouse, she would be his stepdaughter, correct? Because that is how matrimony functions." However, he refers to her as his niece, which is a fascinating selection of words, because that is what she would be if he was your brother rather than your husband. Omar was moving her head side to side, yet she was not saying anything while her attorneys were murmuring frantically. "But hold on," Bongino stated, becoming more intense. "Now there is additional information. Let me inform you regarding an email recovered via a Freedom of Information Act petition from Ahmed Elmi to you. In 2011, do you wish to know what it states?" He retrieved the email and read it deliberately and distinctly. Quote, "Thanks for assisting me in obtaining papers, sister. I will ensure I repay you once I arrive in London." End quote. Silence. Absolute silence. Sister Bongino said the word again, allowing it to remain in the air, not wife, but sister. He referred to you as sister in an email regarding assisting him in obtaining documents, specifically immigration documents, which is what this situation concerned. You wed your sibling to aid him in acquiring U.S. citizenship, or at the very least, student visa, standing in-state tuition perks, and a simpler route to permanent residency. He was not finished stating, but that is still not the entirety of the proof. I possess 6 affidavits, which are sworn declarations under penalty of perjury from individuals in the Minneapolis Somali community. These are people who knew your family, and people who knew you in Somalia before you escaped. And do you know what they all state? He displayed the pile of papers. They all state Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi is your brother, all 6 separately under oath. Identify him as your sibling. One among them, Mrs. Fedumo Hassan, knew your family prior to the civil conflict, and she is extremely precise and extremely thorough. She states Ahmed Elmi is your biological sibling without doubt and without confusion. Bongino sorted his documents and looked straight at Omar, saying, "Now, let us discuss the timeline, because this is the point where the deception becomes transparent. In 2002, you participate in an Islamic wedding ritual with Ahmed Hirsi, which is not legal, only religious, and you have 2 kids with him in 2006 and 2008. He tallied on his fingers, saying in 2008, you split from Hirsi, which is a religious divorce, not legal, because you were never lawfully wed. In 2009, instantaneously, you lawfully wed Ahmed Elmi, the man sharing the same father as you, who is your brother. But here is the truly fascinating portion. From 2009 until 2011, you, Ahmed Hirsi, and Ahmed Elmi all resided at the identical address. All 3 of you were in a Columbia Heights, Minnesota apartment complex in the same unit. He produced rental agreements, utility invoices, and voter registration files showing all 3 names at the same address. You were residing with your children's father and your lawful husband, who coincidentally is your brother, at the same time beneath the same roof. A person in the crowd asked what loud enough to be audible. In 2009, directly following his marriage to you, Ahmed Elmi registered at North Dakota State University, which is your former school. Do you know what marriage to a U.S. citizen obtains for you? It gets in-state tuition, which is significantly less expensive than out-of-state or international prices. It also renders you qualified for U.S. student financial aid schemes and also provides you legal standing to remain in the nation. Bongino leaned in, saying he finished his studies in 2012, then relocated to Minneapolis, then was removed from public housing, then returned to the UK where he resides currently. Mission achieved. He obtained his diploma. He obtained his perks, and the game is finished. He retrieved one last paper saying, "And here is the definitive proof, your divorce application from 2017. You signed it under penalty of perjury, which implies that telling a lie on it constitutes a felony. In that application you asserted, and I quote, I have had 0 communication with Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi since June of 2011. He placed that document down and produced photographs from London in 2015, which is 4 years after you asserted you had no contact. These are preserved Instagram pictures showing you and Ahmed Elmi together in London. Clearly you and clearly him and clearly together." He gazed at Omar, stating that constitutes perjury, Congresswoman, because you lied under oath in a legal instrument. That is a felony distinct from the marriage deception and distinct from the immigration deception as it is its own federal offense. Omar recovered her voice, which was trembling and defensive, saying, "This is all removed from context, and these are disproven conspiracy theories from bigoted bloggers." Disproven. Bongino's tone became piercing. "Congresswoman, nothing I just showcased has been disproven. UK government records displaying the father's name are not disproven. Your refugee petition displaying the identical father's name is not disproven, and the email addressing you as sister is not disproven. 6 sworn statements are not disproven, and photographs refuting your sworn declaration are not disproven." He stopped saying, "You know what would disprove all of this? Just one easy thing, which is a DNA test." The atmosphere in the room tightened, because if Ahmed Elmi is not your sibling, a DNA test demonstrates it simply and easily. 1 hour to swab your cheek and swab his cheek, and the lab findings return saying, "Not related story finished. You are cleared, and everybody who blamed you appears to be an idiot." He extended his arms, saying, "The Daily Mail asked you to take a DNA test in 2019, and you declined. Multiple other news organizations asked for it, and you declined, and members of Congress asked for it, and you declined. Why?" He reclined, saying, "I will inform you why, because you realize what that test would reveal. You realize Ahmed Elmi is your sibling, and you cannot gamble on that test because it would demonstrate beyond any suspicion that you perpetrated federal immigration fraud." Omar was moving her head back and forth with tears appearing, saying, "I will not honor these bigoted assaults." Bigoted Bongino's tone became icy, with a street cop sharpness appearing. "Let me inform you of something, Congresswoman. I served in the 75th Precinct in East New York, Brooklyn, and do you know what that is? It is one of the most perilous neighborhoods in New York City, and I interacted with every ethnicity, every religion, and every background. I detained individuals of every color and every creed, and do you know what? I was concerned about evidence, crime, and fraud." He gestured at his papers, saying, "This is not regarding your race. This is not regarding your religion, and this is not regarding you being a migrant. This concerns federal offenses, multiple federal offenses, because immigration fraud is a federal crime punishable by up to 5 years in incarceration. It involves up to $250,000 in penalties, and for migrants who perpetrate immigration fraud, deportation." He allowed that to resonate, saying, "You arrived in this nation as a refugee, and this country preserved your life, saved your family, and provided you chances. It gave you citizenship and eventually a position in Congress, and you paid it back by cheating the immigration system by manipulating it. By wedding your brother to assist him in obtaining benefits, he was not qualified, for his voice elevated slightly. You know what that achieves. It renders every valid refugee suspicious, and it causes people to distrust the system. It makes Americans who are already doubtful about immigration state see they perpetrate fraud. You harm every sincere refugee and every sincere immigrant because you could not adhere to the regulations." He shut that portion of his file, saying marriage, deceit, immigration, deceit, perjury. That is 3 federal felonies right there, and we are merely commencing. We have not even discussed your taxes yet. Omar sat paralyzed, while her attorneys were scribbling frantically, and her staff members were on their telephones. The progressive area of the audience had fallen totally quiet, with no more clapping and no more shouting, only disbelief. Bongino retrieved a fresh section from his file, saying, "Let us discuss your tax filings, Congresswoman. Do you know what I discovered working financial fraud inquiries in the Secret Service?" Bongino started arranging his subsequent group of papers. Chase. The currency always chased the currency, Because currency does not lie. People lie, but bank records, tax returns, and financial papers tell the truth. He displayed a new collection of sheets saying 2014 and 2015, your federal tax returns filed jointly. Do you know what married filing jointly implies? Congresswoman, it implies you are submitting taxes as a wedded pair with your spouse, your legal husband or wife. He placed the returns down with Omar's autograph viewable, even from afar, saying, in 2014, you submitted joint tax returns with Ahmed Abdesalan Hirsi. He is the father of your kids, the man you held a religious ceremony with back in 2002. 2015 was the same situation. Joint returns with Ahmed Hirsi. Bongino glanced up at her, saying, problem, a major problem. You were lawfully wed to Ahmed Elmi, not Ahmed Hirsi Elmi, your brother, as the marriage was still effective. You did not lawfully divorce him until 2017. He produced the marriage certificate and the divorce filing date and placed them side by side. So in 2014 and 2015, you submitted joint tax returns with a man you were not lawfully wed to while being lawfully wed to a different man entirely. That constitutes tax fraud. Congresswoman, he read from a legal paper, Title 26 United States Code Section 7206, making untrue declarations on tax returns, specifically. Subsection 1, quote, any person who willfully makes and subscribes any return statement or other document, which contains or is verified by a written declaration that it is made under the penalties of perjury, and which he does not believe to be true and correct as to every material matter, shall be guilty of a felony, end quote. He placed it down, saying penalty up to 3 years in prison, up to $100,000 in fines, plus the taxes owed, plus penalties, plus interest. Omar attempted to answer, saying, I rectified those filings. When you were discovered, Bongino completed the sentence for her. You rectified them after the Minnesota Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board began investigating you and after reporters began asking inquiries. After the narrative became public, not before, but after, he leaned closer. Rectifying fraud after you are caught does not make it not fraud. It simply makes it acknowledged fraud. You signed those tax returns under penalty of perjury. Look at your signature right there as you certified that everything on those returns was true and correct. He pointed at the records, saying, but it was not true as you claimed to be married to Ahmed Hirsi, but you were not. You were married to Ahmed Elmi, which is material data, and that is not a minor error. That is not a technicality, that is fraud. But perhaps Bongino continued with his voice, adopting a sarcastic tone. Perhaps you simply forgot you were married to your brother. Perhaps it slipped your memory. So let us discuss something where you definitely did not forget. Let us discuss perjury. He produced a court document with the official stamp visible dated August 2nd, 2017. Divorce filing, Hennepin County District Court. You petitioning to divorce Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, your brother. I mean your husband, wait. Which is it? He flipped through the sheets. In this filing, you make several declarations under oath, under penalty of perjury. Do you know what perjury is, Congresswoman? It is lying under oath. It is a felony, federal crime, state crime, serious crime. He located the pertinent section, page 3, application for service, by alternate means. This is where you claim you cannot locate Ahmed Elmi to serve him divorce papers, you state. And again, this is under penalty of perjury. Quote, I have had zero contact with Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi since June 2011. End quote. He set the document down cautiously. June 2011. That is what you swore under oath in a legal filing with your signature right there, right above the line. That says, I declare under penalty of perjury that everything I have stated in this document is true and correct. He paused, allowing the tension to increase, saying, now I have been a cop for 20 years. I have testified in court more times than I can tally. I understand what perjury signifies. It means if you lie on that document, you go to prison. That is why people take it seriously. That is why you think twice before you sign it. He removed a manila envelope and opened it deliberately and theatrically. June 2015, London, England. Instagram posts archived, screenshots, timestamps, geotagged, the whole 9 yards. He arranged the photos showing you and Ahmed Elmi together in London. Clear photos, your face, his face together. 4 years after you claimed you had no contact with him, he pointed at the images, that is, you correct. Designer hijab distinct features, that is you, and that is Ahmed Elmi, the same person from all the other photos we possess. Same person from the marriage certificate photo. It is him. Bongino looked at Omar, whose face had become pale. So let me understand this correctly. In June 2011, you allegedly ceased all communication with your brother husband. Yet in 2015, you are photographed with him in London, and then in 2017, you submit legal papers asserting you had not seen him since 2011. He tapped the sheets, saying, that is perjury, clear, simple, undeniable perjury. You lied under oath in a court submission about material facts. That is a felony state. Felony and likely federal, too, depending on the context. Omar's voice emerged, desperate. The photos do not prove. Do not prove. What Bongino interrupted. Do not prove you were together. They do. Do not prove you had contact. They do not prove you lied in your divorce filing. They do. He organized his sheets, saying, let me tell you something I learned in investigations. When somebody lies about one thing, you start doubting everything they say. When somebody commits one crime, you start looking for others. And Congresswoman, you possess a pattern here. He counted on his fingers. Marriage fraud check, immigration fraud check, tax fraud check, perjury check. That is 4 federal felonies, 4 separate crimes. All documented, all provable. His voice became quieter and more intense. I protected presidents for 12 years. George W. Bush, Barack Obama, 2 presidents. I did not vote for, but I protected them because that was my job. I followed the regulations, every background inquiry, every security clearance, every protocol exactly by the book. He pointed at her, saying, you are in Congress, you create laws, you are expected to follow them, but you do not. You commit crimes, and then label anyone who investigates you a racist. Well, I have news for you. I am a cop. I investigate crimes. That is what cops do, and when the evidence is this robust, we make arrests. He reclined, saying, now I cannot arrest you. I am not that variety of law enforcement anymore. But the proof is public. It is documented. It is on the record. And everyone watching this knows exactly what you did. Omar was weeping now with mascara running and her voice cracking, saying, this is a witch hunt. You are persecuting me because you broke the law. Bongino finished. Not yelling, not angry, just stating facts. Multiple laws, multiple times, multiple felonies. He pulled out his next section. And speaking of breaking the law, let us discuss your campaign finances. Let us discuss Tim Minette. Let us discuss how you utilized campaign funds to pay for your affair. Bongino pulled out a thick stack of documents, Federal Election Commission filings, campaign finance reports, and financial records. This section was heavy with evidence. Tim Minett, he began political consultant, married man, ran a firm called E Street Group. Do you know how I know all this? Because it is public record. FEC filings are public. Everyone can see them. He spread out the filings, saying 2018. Your campaign starts paying E Street Group for what consulting services? Digital, consulting, travel expenses. Do you know how much he pulled out a calculator, an actual physical calculator, and held it up? Let us add it up. 2018, approximately $190,000. 2019, approximately $180,000 total through 2019, $370,000 to one consulting firm, Tim Minett's firm. He set the calculator down, saying, "Now, I am not saying consulting is inherently wrong. Campaigns hire consultants. That is normal. But here is what is not normal: having an affair with your consultant while paying him massive amounts of campaign money." Omar tried to interrupt my personal relationships. "Stop," Bongino said sharply. "Stop right there. This is not personal. When campaign funds are involved, when donor money is involved, when federal election law is involved, then it is very much public business." He pulled out a court document. Beth Minett, Tim Minett's wife. She filed for divorce April 2019. Do you know what she said in her divorce filing? Let me read directly from the court documents. He found the relevant section. Quote, "My husband, Tim Minett, told me in April 2019 that he was having an affair with Ilhan Omar. He informed me that he was in love with the congresswoman and that he wanted to dissolve our marriage." End quote. Bongino looked up, saying that is under oath in a legal filing, Beth Minett swearing that her husband confessed to having an affair with you, while you were both married to other people, while his firm was receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from your campaign. He pulled out more documents, saying, "But it gets better." Beth Minett gave a deposition sworn testimony in that deposition. She describes conversations with her husband about the affair, and she says something very interesting. He found the quote. She testified that Tim told her, quote, "Do not worry about money. Ilhan's campaign is covering everything." End quote. The room went completely silent. That statement hung in the air like a bomb. "Ilhan's campaign is covering everything," Bongino repeated slowly. "Campaign funds, donor money, money from working people who believed in you, who donated to elect you, who thought their money would go toward campaign activities." He pulled out specific FEC filings, saying, "Let us look at some of these expenses. March 2019 travel expenses for E Street Group. $15,000 for a trip to California campaign event, maybe a romantic getaway." He flipped pages. April 2019, same month. Beth Minett says the affair was admitted, more travel expenses, more consulting fees. May 2019, June 2019, July 2019. Every single month, huge payments he pulled out. Credit card records, campaign, credit card statements, dinners, hotels, flights. All charged to campaign. All while you were having an affair. All while both of you were married to other people. Bongino's voice went harder. "You know what is particularly disgusting about this? Beth Minett was not just your consultant's wife. She worked in politics too. She had a career. She had a life. You destroyed her marriage. You broke up a family. And you used campaign funds to do it." Omar was shaking her head, tears streaming, saying, "This is unfair. This is unfair." Bongino's Queen's accent got thicker. Street cop coming out. "You want to talk about unfair? Let me tell you what is unfair. Working people donating $20, $50, $100 Because they believe in you. Because they think you are fighting for them, and you take that money and use it to fund your affair. He slammed the documents down. Not violent, just emphatic. That is unfair. That is theft. That is fraud. That is violation of federal campaign finance law. He pulled out another section. But wait, there is more. March 2020, you marry Tim Minot. The affair is public now. Everyone knows. Beth Minet's divorce is finalized. You divorce Ahmed Hirsi, you marry Tim. He pulled out post-2020 FEC filings. Think the payments stopped. Think you stopped funneling money to your now husband, no? They increased. He started reading amounts. $2,021.1 million more than triple the previous year's combined 2021, another million plus. You are now paying your husband's consulting firm massive amounts of campaign money. Bongino looked at the committee at the cameras. Think about this. You marry the guy, he is now your husband, and you continue paying his company. Your campaign donors are now funding your household, your family income. That is a textbook conflict of interest. That is potentially illegal coordination between candidate and consultant that is laundering campaign funds into personal income. He pulled out FEC regulations, read them aloud. Federal election law prohibits using campaign funds for personal use. Personal use includes payments to family members beyond fair market value. It includes payments that primarily benefit the candidate personally rather than the campaign. He set the regulations down, saying you are paying your husband over $1 million a year for consulting. Does that seem like fair market value? Or does that seem like you are using campaign money to support your household? Omar tried again, saying the FEC reviewed. The FEC is investigating. Bongino corrected. Multiple ethics complaints have been filed. The investigation is ongoing. And everyone watching this can see what you did. His voice went quiet, intense. I have seen corruption in my 20 years. I have seen politicians take bribes. I have seen lobbyists buy access. I have seen all kinds of financial crimes, but this is cruder than most of it. He gestured at the pile of documents, saying, you had an affair, used campaign money to fund it, destroyed a marriage, then married the guy, and kept funneling donor money to him. That is not consulting. That is not legitimate business. That is personal enrichment. That is fraud. He leaned forward one final time, saying, and the worst part, you did all this while claiming to fight for working people, while claiming to represent the struggling, the poor, the vulnerable. They donated to you, and you used their money to fund your affair and then support your wealthy husband. He closed that section of his folder, saying marriage fraud, tax fraud, perjury, campaign finance fraud. How many felonies is that? I have lost count, but we are not done, because there is something even more fundamental we need to discuss. He pulled out his next section. Let us talk about what you did to the refugee system that saved your life. Bongino's tone shifted, less cop, more personal. This was emotional for him. You came to this country as a refugee, he began. Voice softer now, 1995. You were 12, 13 years old. Your family fled Somalia. Civil war. Terrible situation. You spent 4 years in a refugee camp in Kenya, Dadaab refugee camp. I have seen photos. I have read about it. Horrific conditions. He pulled out documents saying, then, America accepted you, your family refugee status. You came to Minnesota, got settled, got help, got opportunities, learned English, went to school, North Dakota State University, got your degree. He looked at Omar, 2000, age 17 or 18. You became a United States citizen, naturalized full citizen, all rights, all privileges. This country welcomed you, protected you, gave you everything. He paused. And 19 years later, you are in Congress, refugee to Congresswoman. That is the American dream, right? That is proof the system works. Proof that America welcomes people who need help. Proof that opportunity exists here. His voice hardened. But you did not just benefit from the system. You exploited it. You defrauded it. You betrayed it. He pulled out the marriage fraud evidence again. You married your brother to gain immigration, to get him benefits, to help him circumvent the system, the same system that saved your life. You turned around and defrauded it. Bongino stood up, walked a few steps, street cop lecture mode. You know what that does? You know what happens when a refugee commits immigration fraud. It makes every refugee suspect, every legitimate asylum seeker gets questioned harder, gets investigated more thoroughly, gets their claims doubted. He pointed at her. You proved the skeptics right. Everyone who says refugees commit fraud. You proved them right. Everyone who says we need stricter vetting. You proved them right. Everyone who says immigrants game the system. You proved them right. His voice rose. I have been protecting people for 20 years. NYPD Secret Service, FBI. I have worked with immigrants from every country, every background. Most of them honest, law-abiding, hardworking. They follow the rules. They are grateful for the opportunity. They contribute. He gestured broadly. And then there is you. You come here as a refugee, get every advantage, every opportunity, and you commit federal crimes multiple times. And you hide behind identity politics when anyone questions you. Omar tried to speak, saying, you do not understand what it is like. Do not understand. Bongino's voice went sharp. Do not understand. What do not understand? Being an immigrant. My grandparents were immigrants. Italian came through Ellis Island, worked their whole lives, followed every rule, never asked for handouts. Built a life, he pointed at himself. I grew up in Queens, working-class neighborhood. My father was a city worker, my mother a secretary. Nobody handed me anything. I worked for everything. Became a cop. Dangerous streets, East New York, Brooklyn, the 75th precinct. You know what that neighborhood was like in the 90s, war zone. His voice was passionate now real. I worked my way up NYPD to Secret Service, protected presidents, earned my way, and I followed every single rule. Every background check, every security clearance, every protocol. Because that is what you do in this country. You follow the rules. He turned back to Omar, saying, you did not follow the rules. You broke them repeatedly, deliberately. And you claim anyone who calls you out is attacking you because of your identity. He walked back to the table, sat down, looked directly at her, saying, this is not about you being Muslim. This is not about you being black. This is not about you being an immigrant. This is not about you being a woman. He tapped the documents. This is about federal crimes, about fraud, about lying, about corruption, about betraying the system that saved your life. His voice went quieter, more intense. You lecture Americans about compassion, about welcoming refugees, about opening doors. And I actually agree with some of that. I think we should help people fleeing war, fleeing persecution, fleeing violence. He leaned forward. But we cannot help people if we cannot trust the system. And we cannot trust the system when people like you commit fraud, when you game it, when you exploit it for personal benefit. He pulled out one final document. You want to know what would clear all this up? What would prove your innocence? What would shut down every accusation? He held it up. DNA test. Simple. Easy, quick proves Ahmed Elmi is not your brother. vindicates you completely, makes me look like an idiot, makes everyone who accused you look like conspiracy theorists. He set it down, but you will not take it. Multiple outlets requested it. You refused multiple times. Why? He stared at her. Because you know what it would show. You know he is your brother. You know the test would prove you committed immigration fraud, and you cannot risk that. Omar was crying openly, now voice breaking. I do not have to prove anything to you. You do not have to prove anything to me. Bongino agreed. But you should want to prove it to America. You should want to clear your name. Unless you cannot. Unless the accusations are true, he organized his papers. Refugee to Congresswoman could have been an inspiration. Could have shown that the system works, that America welcomes those in need, that opportunity exists. He looked at her with something like disappointment. Instead, you proved that some people will exploit any system, will break any rule, will commit any fraud, and will call anyone who questions them a bigot. He pulled out his next section, but let us get back to specifics, because I want to try something. I want to ask you some very simple questions, and I want you to answer them yes or no. Can you do that? Congresswoman sat back. Bongino settled back in his chair, interrogation mode. This was what he trained for: decades of questioning suspects, decades of spotting lies. This was his element. Internal investigations. He began, voice conversational. Innocent people answer questions. They are eager to clear their names. They cooperate. They provide evidence. They want the truth to come out. He paused. Guilty people. They deflect. They attack the questioner. They claim persecution. They refuse to answer. They hide behind technicalities. He looked at Omar. Every single question I have asked you today, you have deflected. You have attacked me. You have claimed this is racist, Islamophobic, a witch hunt. But you have not answered the questions. He pulled out a legal pad, fresh page pen ready. So let us try this simple questions. Yes or no answers. That is it, just answer the questions. He clicked. His pen. Question 1 is, Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, your brother, yes or no? Omar looked at her lawyers. They whispered. She turned back. These allegations are baseless conspiracy theories that have been... Yes or no? Bongino interrupted. Simple question. Is he your brother? I have already addressed this in previous statements. That is not a yes or no. Is Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi your brother? Omar's jaw clenched. I refuse to dignify. Refusal to answer, Bongino said, writing it down, got it noted. Moving on. He looked up. Question 2. Did you file joint tax returns with Ahmed Hirsi in 2014 and 2015, while legally married to Ahmed Elmi? Omar consulted with her lawyers again. I corrected those filings through the proper, that is a yes. Bongino said, writing, you did file joint returns with someone you were not married to. While married to someone else? Correct, the filings were amended, yes or no. Did you file those returns as I described? Silence. Omar looked trapped. Silence, noted. Bongino said, I will take that as a yes since you did not deny it. Next question. He looked up. Question 3. In your 2017 divorce filing, did you state under penalty of perjury that you had no contact with Ahmed Elmi since June 2011? Omar's voice came out defensive. Legal documents have specific yes or no. Did you make that statement in that filing? Yes, but yes, thank you. First straight answer. Bongino wrote it down. Question 4. Were you photographed with Ahmed Elmi in London in 2015? Omar shook her head. Those photos do not prove. Were you photographed with him in 2015, 4 years after you claimed you had no contact? Her lawyers whispered urgently she did not answer, refusal to answer. Bongino noted interesting. He continued, question 5. Did your campaign pay Tim Mynette's company approximately $370,000 between 2018 and 2019? Campaign expenditures are all properly disclosed. That is a yes. $370,000. Correct, the FEC filings show yes. Got it. He wrote it down. Question 6. Were you having an affair with Tim Mynette during this time period? Omar's face went red. My personal life, Beth Mynette testified under oath. That you were in her divorce filing is her testimony. False. I am not going to discuss my personal refusal to answer, Bongino said. But we have testimony under oath from his ex-wife. So I will note that as confirmed by a third-party witness, he looked up again. Question 7. After you married Tim Mynette in 2020, did your campaign continue paying his company, and did those payments increase to over $1 million? Consulting fees are determined by yes or no. Did payments increase after marriage? The services provided were yes or no, silence. I will check the FEC filings myself. Bongino said they are public, and yes, they increased substantially. He set his pen down, looked at the legal pad, looked at the committee, looked at Omar. 7 questions, 7 deflections. Not one straight answer, not one honest response. He stood up. You know what I learned interrogating suspects for 20 years? This right here? He pointed at her. This is what guilt looks like. This is how criminals respond when cornered with evidence. He walked a few steps. Innocent people say, no, that is not true. And here is proof. They provide evidence. They welcome investigation. They clear their name. He turned back. You attack me, you claim racism, you refuse to answer. You hide behind your identity, you use your religion as a shield. You claim victimhood. His voice went hard, but the evidence does not care about your feelings. Documents do not care about your identity. Facts do not care about political correctness. He pointed at his folder. I have got UK government documents, US government documents, court filings, tax returns, FEC filings, sworn testimony, photos, emails, witnesses. He spread his hands. What do you have? Accusations of racism, claims of conspiracy theories, refusal to answer questions, refusal to take a DNA test. He walked back to his seat. In my 20 years. In law enforcement, I have never seen an innocent person refuse a DNA test that would prove their innocence. Never, not once. Innocent people take that test immediately. He sat down, looked directly at her. You will not take it because you cannot, because it would prove. You married your brother, and that would end your career, end your freedom, possibly end your citizenship. Omar was sobbing now, makeup ruined, voice barely working. This is harassment. This is persecution. I do not have to sit here, and you do not have to sit here. Bongino agreed. You can leave. Walk out, storm off, claim victimhood. That is what guilty people do. He organized his papers, but everyone watching this knows the truth. You committed federal crimes, multiple felonies, and you are hiding behind identity politics because you cannot defend yourself with facts. He pulled out his final section. But let me address one more thing, because people watching are probably wondering if you are so guilty, if the evidence is so strong. Why? Why have you not been charged? Why have you not been arrested? Why are you not in prison? He held up the papers. Let me explain why. You are probably going to get away with it. Bongino's tone changed again, bitter, frustrated. This was personal. You are sitting there wondering if I am so guilty. Why am I not in handcuffs? Good question. Let me answer it. He pulled out a timeline. 2016 conservative media starts investigating your marriages. Questions arise. Evidence accumulates. U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Obama appointee Andy Lugar. He issues a letter saying they are not investigating convenient. He moved down the timeline. 2017, Trump takes office, new administration, new prosecutors should investigate, right? Should look at all this evidence. They do not. Why? Because you are a rising progressive star. You are a squad member. You check every diversity box. Prosecuting you would be political suicide. He tapped the timeline. 2018. You are elected to Congress. Now you are protected by even more political considerations. Now you are a member of Congress. Going after you looks like political persecution. Even though the evidence is overwhelming, he pulled out statutes. But here is the real problem. Statute of Limitations. Marriage fraud from 2009. We are at 16 years now. Some statutes of limitations are 5 years, might be too late. Tax fraud from 2014 to 2015. 6 years typically could be expired, he read from legal documents, Federal Marriage Fraud Statute. Up to 5 years prison, but must be prosecuted within a certain time frame. Immigration fraud, similar issues. Perjury from 2017, that is more recent. Still, potentially prosecutable. He set the papers down. But here is the political reality. You are a minority woman, Muslim immigrant, progressive, Democrat, squad member. Going after you would be called racist, Islamophobic, sexist, political persecution. His voice went hard with frustration. Prosecutors are scared. They do not want the media backlash. They do not want to be accused of targeting you because of your identity. So they do nothing. They let it slide. They hope it goes away. He looked at the committee at the cameras. That is the system. We have different rules for different people if you are politically protected. If you check the right boxes, if you have the right support, you can commit federal crimes and face no consequences. He pointed at her. You should be in prison, or at minimum facing serious charges. Marriage fraud, immigration fraud, tax fraud, perjury, campaign, finance, violations, that is multiple felonies. He pulled out recent news articles, but you know what? It might not be over. Tom Homan borders, czar, Trump administration. He is pulling your files, looking at what can still be prosecuted FBI under new leadership. He smiled slightly. My leadership, we are reviewing everything he read from a recent statement. Tom Homan quote, we are looking at the evidence, some statute of limitations issues, but we are examining what legal options remain. That is not over, Congresswoman. That investigation is active. He pulled out more documents, and there is another possibility people do not talk about if you committed immigration fraud. If you married your brother to get him citizenship or benefits that could affect your citizenship, he read from immigration law, citizenship obtained through fraud. Or misrepresentation can be revoked, denaturalization. It is rare, but it happens if it is proven. You committed immigration fraud even years ago, even decades ago. They can revoke your citizenship. He looked up, and once citizenship is revoked, deportation becomes possible back to Somalia, back to where you came from. That is the law. Omar's eyes went wide. Fear visible. Now, do not like that, Bongino asked. Do not want to face those consequences. Then you should have followed the rules. Should have been grateful for the opportunity you were given. Instead of defrauding the system, he organized his papers one final time. But realistically, you are probably going to get away with it. political protection, media, shield, identity, politics, armor, prosecutors too scared to act, statute of limitations. Expired on some crimes, he looked directly at her. But make no mistake, everyone knows what you did. The evidence is public. It is documented. It is irrefutable, and history will record it. He stood up. I spent 20 years in law enforcement. NYPD Secret Service FBI. I followed the rules, played by the book. I have seen criminals get away with crimes because they had the right connections, the right political protection, the right identity. He pointed at her. You are one of them. You committed federal crimes multiple times, and you are hiding behind identity politics, calling anyone who investigates you a racist. Playing the victim while you are actually the criminal. His voice rose with passion. But I will tell you something. The American people are not stupid. They see through it. They know what you did. They know you married your brother. They know you committed tax fraud. They know you lied under oath. They know you funneled campaign money to your affair partner, then husband. He gestured broadly. They know you came here as a refugee and repaid America. By defrauding the immigration system, they know you are corrupt. They know you are a criminal, and one day when you are gone from Congress, when your political career is over, all anyone will remember is that Ilhan Omar committed federal crimes and got away with it because the system was too broken to prosecute her. He sat back down. Calm. Now the anger burned out. That is the truth. That is the reality. You win. For now, you get away with it for now. But everyone knows, and history will judge you. He closed his folder. Final. I am done, Madam Chairwoman. I have presented the evidence. The American people can judge for themselves. The hearing room erupted the moment Bongino finished media scrambling staffers on phones. Committee members arguing security, trying to maintain order. Omar did not say another word. Her lawyers flanked her. They rushed her out of the room. Through a side door, away from cameras, away from reporters. But you cannot escape the internet. Within minutes, clips were everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, every platform. Hashtag Ilhan Omar. Exposed, trending worldwide in under an hour. Hashtag brother marriage. Hashtag tax fraud. Hashtag campaign finance fraud. All trending. All viral C-SPAN ratings shattered records. The hearing footage replayed continuously on every news channel. Conservative media went 24/7 coverage. Mainstream media could not ignore it. Anymore, even progressive outlets struggled to defend her. It is concerning, said one MSNBC host. Clearly uncomfortable, these allegations deserve serious investigation. CNN tried harder. To defend her, Bongino's attacks were aggressive and potentially inappropriate, but even they had to acknowledge the documents, the evidence, the refusal to answer questions. Fox News ran victory laps. Bongino destroys Omar with facts. Squad member exposed for multiple felonies. The coverage was relentless. By the next morning, Democrats were in full panic mode. Nancy Pelosi issued a careful statement. We take these allegations seriously and support thorough investigation through appropriate channels. Translation: we are distancing ourselves. Chuck Schumer said nothing. Absolutely nothing. His office declined. Comment squad members tried to support her. AOC tweeted, "This is a coordinated attack on a woman of color in Congress. We stand with Ilhan." But even that got ratioed thousands of comments. What about the evidence is evidence? Racist address. The facts, not identity. Rashida Tlaib defended her. Ayanna Pressley defended her, but their voices were drowned out by the sheer volume of evidence. Now public documents everywhere, people sharing photos. Timelines, analyses. Within 3 days, a petition appeared. Ahmed Hassan started it. A refugee advocate in Minneapolis came to America legally from Somalia, waited years. In the system, followed every rule. He watched the hearing, saw the evidence, and he was furious. "I came here legally," he told reporters outside his community center. "I waited. I followed the rules. I was vetted. Background checks, interviews, years of waiting, and she commits fraud. She makes it harder." For every legitimate refugee, his petition investigate Ilhan Omar for immigration. Fraud. The text was simple. "We, the undersigned, demand that the FBI, DOJ, and relevant authorities fully investigate Representative Ilhan Omar for immigration fraud, tax fraud, perjury, and campaign finance violations. The evidence presented in the congressional hearing demands action. No one is above the law." First day, 50,000 signatures. Week 1, 200,000. Week 2, 500,000. Ahmed did interviews everywhere. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. His story was powerful. Legal refugee, followed the rules, advocating for accountability. She betrayed the system that saved her life, he said on Anderson Cooper. She betrayed every honest refugee, because now people will look at us with more suspicion, because she proved the skeptics right. Cooper tried to push back. But the allegations are not proven. The evidence is overwhelming. Ahmed interrupted. Same father name, Instagram posts, email, 6 witnesses' photos contradicting her sworn statement. Refusal to take DNA test that is not innocent behavior. Even Cooper had to acknowledge that Sarah Mitchell came forward, next friend of Beth Minot. Watched her friend's marriage destroyed. "Beth is a good person," Sarah told Fox News. "She did not deserve what happened, and to know campaign funds paid. For the affair donor money from working people, that is theft." She started her own petition, "Hold Ilhan Omar accountable for campaign finance violations." That got another 100,000 signatures. Quickly, Conservative Legal Foundation filed formal complaints to the FBI, to DOJ, to the House Ethics Committee, to the Minnesota Attorney General, demanding investigation, demanding prosecution. The complaints were detailed. Professional citing specific laws, specific evidence, specific violations, hard to ignore. Tom Homan gave an interview. "We are reviewing everything he said on Fox News. Immigration fraud is serious. If she married her brother to game the system, that is a federal crime. Statute of limitations might be an issue on some charges, but we are examining what can still be prosecuted." Reporter asked, "Could she be deported?" Homan did not smile. "If citizenship was obtained through fraud, it can be revoked. That is the law. Denaturalization is possible. And after that, yes, deportation is possible. We are looking at all options." That clip went mega viral, millions of views. The idea that Omar could be deported, that galvanized conservatives, enraged progressives. But the law was clear. Fraud invalidates citizenship. FBI under Bongino's leadership announced a review of the case. New evidence has come to light. We are examining what was not investigated previously. This is not political. This is about federal crimes. Even Democrats who defended Omar went quiet. Too many felonies. Too much evidence. Too politically toxic. Her fundraising collapsed. Donors pulled out. Major progressive PACs redirected money. Tech billionaires who had supported her stopped responding to calls. She had become poison. Primary challengers announced a moderate Democrat, a Republican, even another progressive who promised integrity and accountability. I support progressive policies, the progressive challenger said. But we need representatives who follow the law, who do not commit federal crimes, who do not embarrass our movement polls, showed her favorability dropping in her own district among her own constituents. 6 months later, Omar held a press conference. She looked exhausted, makeup perfect, but face drawn. She had aged visibly. After much consideration and consultation with my family, she read from a prepared statement, "I have decided not to seek re-election. I want to spend more time with my family and explore new opportunities outside of Congress." Translation, she was done. Politically, finished career over the media, tried to spin it as her choice, stepping down to focus on family. But everyone knew the truth. She had been destroyed, exposed, forced out. Ahmed Hassan issued a statement, good, but it is not enough. She should face charges, she should be investigated, she should be held accountable. Justice requires it. Sarah Mitchell agreed. She is escaping responsibility, walking away, getting to keep her freedom while the evidence of her crimes is public. That is not justice. That is the system failing conservative media. Declared victory. Bongino destroyed Omar's career, squad member forced out after fraud exposure. The coverage was triumphant. But Tom Homan was not done. Investigation continues, he said. In a statement, just because she is leaving Congress does not mean the law does not apply. We are still examining potential charges. That investigation continues today. Files being reviewed, evidence being analyzed. Prosecutors considering options. Will she be charged? Unknown. Political considerations, statute of limitations, challenges, proving some allegations beyond reasonable doubt, but everyone knows what she did. Everyone knows she married her brother. Everyone knows she committed tax fraud. Everyone knows she lied under oath. Everyone knows she funneled campaign money to her affair partner. Everyone knows she came here as a refugee and repaid America by defrauding the immigration system. The evidence is public. The documents are real. The witnesses testified. The facts are facts, and history will record it all. Ilhan Omar came to America as a refugee, rose to Congress, and fell because she committed federal crimes and thought she could hide behind identity politics. She was wrong. Dan Bongino, street cop from Queens, protected presidents. Made it to FBI deputy director and used his platform to expose corruption with evidence, with facts. With the truth, that is the story, that is what happened. When Ilhan Omar tried to destroy Dan Bongino, she destroyed herself. Instead, stories like this matter because politicians like Ilhan Omar count on you not knowing the facts. They count on identity politics protecting them. They count on calling investigators racist instead of answering questions. They count on the media ignoring evidence. They count on prosecutors being too scared to act. But the evidence is out there. The documents are real. The facts do not lie. If this opened your eyes to who Ilhan Omar really is, share this story. Let people know the truth. Let them see the evidence. Let them understand what she did. Drop a comment. Should she be prosecuted? Should she be deported? What do you think justice looks like here? Subscribe for more truth, more facts, more accountability, because politicians like Omar need to be exposed. The corrupt need to be called out. The criminals need to face consequences. This is just one story, but there are plenty more. Politicians committing crimes, plenty more corruption to expose, plenty more truth to tell. See you in the next one.